Another edition of Riding Home. Dean Legge and Ryan Curley, Georgia, Florida, the cocktail party. Kirby Smart has described Florida's quarterback as perhaps winning the Heisman. We'll just see. Although he has really played well, Graham Mertz, here lately. What did you take from the press conference today, Ryan?
Similar to the verbiage used a lot around the Kentucky game. He kept talking about how physical this game was, how these practices have to be really physical, how the game is won at the line of scrimmage and in the red zone and places where physicality really matters. So similar to the themes that were brought up during the Kentucky week. But yeah, I mean his comments on Graham Mertz were very high praise, and that's not he does that with a lot of the quarterbacks, right?
Oh,
But
yeah,
Mertz is playing well. They
he
as
is.
far as the passing game, the last two games that Florida's played, they really turned it around compared to what it was earlier in the season.
Giving up way too many sacks. I'll say that right now. Just way too many sacks. Short balls. But he's completing a lot of passes. He's playing well. The against South Carolina was his worst statistical performance in terms of percentage completion. But of course, I think he went for over 400 yards. I wrote about this a lot yesterday or last night, getting ready for Final Feelings. Um, Look, Florida's been hot and cold a lot this year. They're going to have to play their best game and then some to beat Georgia. That's my take on it. I've watched these two teams a lot. I did not watch Florida play Charlotte or McNeese State, but all the other games I've watched, they stole that game from South Carolina. Make no mistake about it. And they played fine against Vanderbilt. It wasn't anything unbelievable. Those are their last two games. Those really are their, besides the Tennessee game, those are their best two games of the season that I've seen.
No, I agree. Those are and look, but that South Carolina game. Let's not act. So if that's one of their best games,
It
what they
is.
went by two. I mean, that came down to the very end, and they had a lead for I want to say most of that game. But
Well, South Carolina was up 10 with like 5 minutes to go or something. It was a completely inexcusable loss. Look, Georgia and Florida both. One reason why this game, there's two reasons why this game is so important. A, well, three. A, it's Georgia, Florida. B, the winner of this game really will have control of the East. Kentucky's got two conference losses. You know, the winner of this game will really have control of the East. And then finally, the hardest part of both of their schedules is coming up right now. I mean, Florida's got Georgia, Missouri, LSU, and Florida State are all coming up on the Gators schedule. Georgia obviously has this game, Missouri, Ole Miss, and at Tennessee. So this is the roughest part of both of their schedules. And needless to say, I've been to games where both these teams are not good. I went to 2010, 2013. You know, both those times were anomalies, but they were outstanding games. But this one will matter a lot because of the situation. And the situation is the winner really, I wouldn't say, if it's Georgia, they grab a hold of the East firmly. Florida, they take a lead.
yeah, I mean, Florida, I think, is the number one team outside of the top 25 right now.
They're number
So
26.
they're on
Yes.
the edge of being ranked. It's not a bad football team, this Florida team, and I think that we said that at the beginning of the year, and they proved us wrong. I don't think this is a bad, or maybe just not as bad as we thought they were. Um,
I would suggest we don't yet necessarily know that.
Possibly true.
Let me just say that real quick. I mean, they had their best win is over Tennessee, and that was a good win, no doubt. They
Yeah.
definitely, but what they did against Utah, I was not surprised by that. Them losing Kentucky, I was not surprised they lost to Kentucky. I was surprised that they were pile driven and kept asking to get pile driven. I mean, they're not going to surely will not play like that in Jacksonville. But statistically,
It's
Mertz looks
inconsistent. It's inconsistent,
they're
and there's been
very
a lot of
inconsistent.
there's been a
They're
lot of
very
parity in college football and in the conference.
Mertz is not inconsistent, but Florida really is.
Is he not inconsistent? I
No.
disagree with that.
Well, he's
I would
hitting a
say
lot
that
of
he's been
balls.
inconsistent. Yeah, he's hit a lot of balls, and I think
They're not big balls.
no, former 5 star, right? Borderline 5 star.
Listen, let me go on a rant about this real quick.
Okay.
Listen, I'm officially to the point where quarterback 5 stars just that just doesn't matter.
Are you done with 5-star
Yeah, I'm
quarterbacks?
done with 5-star quarterbacks. I've seen this too many times, and here's why I'm done with them. And it took the Clemson game over the weekend. That guy was a 5-star quarterback. That guy is not good. Now, I'm not saying he's bad, but he's not good. And I mean, how many times we got to hear about some 5-star quarterback? Everybody, there's only so many Division One, Power Five schools. There, all these kids. It seems like every program has at least one 5-star quarterback. I mean, and I just don't. I am over 5-star quarterbacks. I'm out. I'm voting them off the island.
Yeah, well, I disagree with you saying that he's been consistent. I think that the completion percentage has been nice and that's been consistent. But as far as the effectiveness of their passing game, that has not been the same all year long. I mean,
Well, that's
they
not
had
the
to
same
rely
as
on the
being
run game.
consistent, though.
Mm.
I mean, like you're what? Can you
To
be more?
each their own on that. I mean, look, it wasn't good at the beginning of the year. Maybe the first two games are not great
No.
to base your opinion off of, and that they just aren't because I think things change obviously. But the passing game was not effective for Florida at the beginning of the year. It was the run
So,
game is kind of what their bread and butter was early on, and then they get beat up by Kentucky, and then after that, that's when the pass game really hits for them.
so he did. They were losing this game, but he went for 333 yards against Utah, 71% touchdown and an interception. Do I need to talk about McNeese State? I guess not. Then Tennessee, is at 80% for passes, only 166 yards. They really controlled the line of scrimmage there. 88% against Charlotte, 284 yards, 244 against Kentucky for 83%. Then 83% again against Vanderbilt for 254 yards. And then he really did explode against South Carolina in terms of yardage, but only quote unquote completed 63%. I mean, here's the thing about Florida in their passing game. It's short typically. They give up a lot of sacks. He's going to throw a lot of short balls. I don't know how
I
those
just
two
don't
things.
think that's going to work against Georgia.
Well, hold on. Let me just complete the sentence though, which is that I don't know how you are throwing short balls that often and yet you're getting sacked that often. So that's confusing to me. But no, I don't think I don't think this is good news for Florida at all. To me, I mean they're in a situation where they're playing the best team in the country. They are certainly not the best team in the country. They played well against South Carolina to come back and win that game. But Ryan, if you're giving up what 39 yards against South Carolina, that's not a good sign. That is not a good sign at all for going
What do
in
you
to this Georgia.
what tell me when?
Go.
What do you mean by that number, the 39 yards? The
39.
third
I may
what?
have said yards because I was checking on something. I pressed pause on the video. They gave up 39 points to South Carolina. To me,
Okay,
that's
okay,
a
okay.
pretty big red flag.
It is a big red flag. South Carolina is well. I was wrong. I thought South Carolina was going to be more competitive in the East, and they have played competitively
They have.
against some of these teams, but they haven't. That hasn't translated to W's. So I ended up being a little wrong about South Carolina. I thought that they were going to be better than Florida, and so far that
Dude, they
hasn't been the
were.
case. But
They just lost the
like,
game.
yeah. So, but no, 39 point. That's. I think it's going to be hard for Florida to score on Georgia. And as
You
much
think
as
say that one more time, Ryan?
Georgia's
I
been
couldn't hear
some,
you.
I think it's going to be hard for Florida to score on Georgia. That's how I feel about it. I think that if they're relying a lot on short passing and stuff like that, Georgia has the personnel to play well against that. And I think that now we know. We didn't know this earlier in the season, but we know that Georgia can shut down a phase of someone's offense. They did that to Kentucky. They did that to Kentucky across the board. They shut down their entire offense. So if Georgia just takes away one or the other from Florida, it's going to be a long day for them offensively.
So offensively, yeah, I think Florida's look. There's a lot of different things. Florida, they're not just gonna play offense. Their defense is not bad. I don't think it's bad at all. The challenge though, Ryan, is this is the best offense Florida will have faced. This is the best
Yeah.
defense that Florida will have
Do you
faced.
think people realize that Georgia has a top 10 offense?
Dude, I don't know, but I keep saying it over and over and over again. I mean, they're Georgia as an offense has come into its own. I mean, they're number 3 offense in the country in terms of total offense, which is yards. They're the number 7 offense in terms of scoring offense. You and I have talked a lot. We both like Washington. I mean, after what I saw, the
Oh,
one.
dude. Man, how disappointing.
Well, I think disappointing is Georgia as an offense has not been shut out this season. That's what happened to UW last week.
No, yeah, and dude, that's swung the Heisman odds. He's no
Well,
longer one.
I mean, listen, the
It's
odds
McCarthy now.
themselves have kind of just gone, I wouldn't say all over the place. Michigan is now slightly the betting favorite to win the national championship. That's actually very tight. I don't know that I.
Oh,
Yeah, they are
I
slightly
not from what I saw yesterday.
well,
I saw that
it
Georgia was still a
depends on
slight
where you're
favorite.
at.
Okay, okay.
But generally speaking, Michigan has taken that spot. Well, generally speaking might be the wrong way to put it. But and then you've got JJ McCarthy is now the betting favorite to win the Heisman. Jaden Daniels at third behind Michael Penix, Jordan Travis, and then Dylan Gabriel, who you know anyway, we don't have to get started on all that. Marvin Harrison, Bo Nix, and then Brock Bowers. So Brock is getting still
Ah,
some love.
so
Yeah,
I saw
not much. He's
I
a
saw
long way
Beck.
away from winning it, but I just I think for Florida getting back to that game, yeah. Do I think people realize Georgia's got a top 10 offense? I don't know that they do. I don't know that Georgia's going to score 40 on Florida this week necessarily, but Georgia's not scored 40 in an SEC game yet. Well, they've scored 40 once
That's
this
not
season.
true. They put up 50 on Kentucky, Dean.
Right. I
I think they
realize
could
we're
put
on a
up
slight.
40 this week. I do.
I'm sorry?
I think they could put up 40. That's bold, I think, but it's Georgia has that in them this week, in my opinion.
Well, I think they're going to cover the line, but I've been saying that for a while, and the line keeps getting kind of knocked down
What's
a
the
little bit,
line
which I
right
think
now? What's the line right now?
if you're me, well, now I say it's getting knocked down. It's about what it was. So, it depends. My suspicion is Georgia will come out and play well. Now, what that means, I don't know. I've seen Florida play really well. What they did to Tennessee, that was at home, a lot of momentum, and Florida played well. Florida's going to need some turnovers in this game. The other thing too, you're talking about a second ago about Georgia's offense. Georgia's defense has been. I don't want to use the word amazing, but it's one slight notch below amazing, Ryan. When the other team,
No,
you're really like you're still
dude,
not shaking off the off week bug, huh?
that was going strong. This has been the Mount's best performance of all time. I don't want to hear it. It just didn't finish. Just didn't finish.
Gotcha.
Longer drive than normal. Longer drive than it normally has to deal with. I
Well,
asked a lot of it.
Mark Rick would tell you got to finish the drill. Um, the very impressive part about what Georgia's doing now on defense is about it's 1.4 times a game they give up a drive for a touchdown in these last 5 games. So I did not count the first 2 games because they were just so lopsided. When you do that, it's even worse. So if the other team doesn't get a touchdown, it doesn't get a turnover, teams score about 1.4 times a game, just like straight up regular touchdowns. That's it. So that's not a lot of points. Like Vanderbilt, they scored on 2 legitimate drives. One was the first drive of the game, and then they had one in the fourth quarter when they converted that 4th down. Was that when it was? Yeah.
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 So and one was off a turnover, and so they had a really short field.
Kentucky,
Um, Vanderbilt.
right. And then Kentucky had one drive Auburn has 0 touchdown drives. UAB, I believe, had 1, and then South Carolina had 2. That's it. That's it. Now, can you remember all of Georgia's touchdown drives, Ryan?
No, too many of them.
There's too many of them.
Too
Exactly.
many of them. I think it's been for Georgia, it's been a lot more marginal than I think people realize as far as how close they've been to things just looking a lot better than they have. You, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Just a couple of these turnovers
Yeah.
not happening or just, you know, a stop here or there, and people would think a lot differently about Georgia right now. I think that it's been pretty marginal um, as far as how close they've been to just looking like the undisputed number one team.
I,
That's my take.
I do want to say this. So, on that same line of thinking, I agree with you, but I don't want to give Georgia a complete pass because then you get into
I'm
Dabo.
not. I'm not. I'm not giving them a pass
Then you
either.
then you get into total Dabo Swinney territory where he's talking about how this, that, or the other. And I mean, I watched that whole. I've had to suffer through that whole Clemson game. I think they put the ball on the ground 5 times. It's like, hey, you might have a fumbling problem. I'm just gonna suggest to you that you might have a problem with ball security. You know how you don't do that? 3 points of pressure, 2 hands on the ball in the pocket, all those stupid drills you do, they're not stupid. There's a reason for that. You're allowed to think in football. And if the ball is dangling away from your body, someone else with 2 hands is going to come through or their helmet, face mask, they're going to knock it out, man. That is, if Georgia does not win the national championship this season, my suspicion is it's probably not because they're not the best team. Now Michigan can beat them. I'm not sure. I'm not so certain Ohio State can like I once did. I think Florida State and Michigan might be the toughest 2 situations, but we'll just see.
Yeah,
But if they turn it over, and that's something that really, in many ways, you control as the person caring for the ball. If they turn it over, then they can lose to a lot of people, including Florida.
I think. Well, I think that goes for any team. I mean, that's just how it goes. But it's been a
Right.
problem for Georgia. Um, yeah, I don't think Ohio State is super close to Georgia from
No.
what I've seen so far,
No.
and definitely
No.
not Penn State now. But Florida State, I'm still kind of iffy on Florida State.
Well,
I'm still kind of iffy on Florida State.
here's my argument with Florida State. Okay, I do think Duke is pretty good. I have to say. I mean, I think that
They
the
have a good
men
defense, man.
they're just a good team, particularly with the quarterback. Now, without the quarterback, we saw what happened there.
That was a shell of himself. That was not Riley Leonard out there. You know what I mean?
And Duke could still wind up winning the ACC for the record, but uh, I just Florida State has athletes that other people don't have. Now Ohio State's got them, but the quarterback is limited. I don't. I'm not going to really say that about the Florida State quarterback, the Michigan quarterback. Those, they've got a quarterback. I can't remember what I just said there. What I'm trying to say is Florida State and Michigan have quarterbacks. They're not, the guy at Ohio State's not on those guys' level, even though he has tremendous playmakers with Ibuka as well as Marvin Harrison and so forth. They have really good skill players, but man, listen, you think it'd be tough against Penn State? What do you think it's going to be against, with Georgia? Georgia's defense is playing really well. I don't know if people realize how well they're playing because they're giving up touchdown drives from the 1 yard line, from the 30-yard line, from the 40. I mean, it's not that hard to score from midfield. It's really not. So I think everybody plays football together, and what the offense does affects the defense, and vice versa. And if they need to, the defense needs to start getting takeaways too, though. I mean, we're at the point here with these games. Most games are not straight up games where there's not turnovers or whatever. Most games do have a little drama in them, special teams, turnovers, stuff like that. So Georgia's defense got to do their part on that front too, and they're not.
Yeah, Georgia's problem is they won the national championship the last 2 years. I mean, as far as just the narrative around the team, and that it boasted an uber elite defense as well during that run. So I think that the conversation around Georgia's defense has had a lot to do with the past and has nothing to do with what's actually going on this season. But
Yes.
it's. I mean, we're saying the same thing, just in different ways. It's a lot closer than what people think to being really, really, really good to just what they have been, which is pretty good defense.
You can't win with this. So they're they're fighting last year. They're shadow boxing last year. It's just that last year has nothing to do with this year, and like last year isn't going to win or lose Georgia this year's national championship, and Michigan doesn't have that to go up against. Michigan has played better, generally speaking, in their time, but the level of competition has not been the same. It just hasn't. I mean, you cannot compare. You want to make fun of Auburn? That's fine. What happened with Ole Miss when they went there Saturday night? Is they won by 7, just like Georgia did. They had a hard time, just like Georgia did. I mean, it's just what it is at Auburn. I mean, it's a hard place to play, and you want to make fun of South Carolina. I can assure you that Auburn and South Carolina would probably win the Big 10 West. They might not beat Wisconsin. Other than that, the Big Ten is not a good league. They have 3 really good teams, and then that's it. There's just nothing
Yeah,
else, and that's who Michigan's been playing. I mean, it doesn't
yeah.
mean they won't win the national championship. I'm saying it's their best win is UNLV. No hate. That's their best win.
Dying to see Michigan against a quality football team. I
They'll
really
win.
need to see that.
I
And
mean,
yeah, exactly.
I do wonder, Ryan. I wonder your take on this. We've seen for years Ohio State be the glitzy, nice sports car that can just fly up and down the field. Man, they don't look like that right now. They look like a dump truck. Will that turn? Will that be harder for Michigan to deal with in the future when that Ohio State's got? I mean, this is a bad way to put it, that they've got more hits than
Oh
they used
no,
to
I feel really confident Michigan's going to win that game against Ohio State at this point in time. At this
right now.
point in time, right now, I think it'd be easier than what we've seen recently.
Well, it's been pretty easy for them.
Yeah, and but just no Stroud. I didn't realize how big. I was wrong about C.J. Stroud for a while. I'm giving him his flowers. Dude was really, 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 really good,
Really
and
good.
he's really good now. And
And
I just think that they're such a similar team to what they were last year.
without
Just a couple. It's just no Stroud. That's like the biggest difference.
yeah.
And I think that it's going to be really hard for Ohio State to beat Michigan because I just think it could be easier this time around. I thought it was in Michigan this year though. It's in Columbus. So, but it didn't matter 2 years ago.
No, it didn't. And we're looking. I mean, Georgia's got a really rough stretch here. Jacksonville, and then Mizzou, and the
Yeah.
Rebels,
Yep.
and then Tennessee. I don't think I mean, I don't think Georgia loses those games necessarily, but they are 4 rough games in a row, and I think it's kind of good in a way because it's going to get them ready for what comes, but they got to survive it and can kind of go through it. Now, this isn't about survival, right? This is about hunting. Okay, well, it's time to go hunting right now. You know, that's what I think. All right, final comments from Kirby's presser.
It's going to be a physical football game.
It usually is. Georgia, Florida. We'll see you there on Saturday.